On September 4th, 2022, reigning world chess champion Magnus Carlsen sat down opposite the 19-year-old rising star Hans Niemann to play round 3 of the Sinquefield Cup, a prestigious chess tournament held in St. Louis, USA. What followed was one of the most shocking 24 hours in chess history, and with the chess world still reeling at the time of this recording, people want to know what really happened. But first, we need to understand the series of events that led up to this game in order to properly examine the events that unfolded in St. Louis. Norwegian-born Magnus Carlsen has been a dominant force in chess for well over a decade now. World champion since 2013, he rarely loses a game of classical chess, and going into his game against Hans Niemann, he was on a 53-game undefeated streak. Now Hans Niemann, on the other hand, was yet to even establish himself in elite chess circles, just a 19-year-old kid from the US with a dream of becoming world chess champion. But one thing Niemann does have on his side is a fervent hunger to dethrone Magnus, and this was on full display less than 3 weeks earlier, when the teenager defeated Magnus Carlsen in an online rapid play game, and when asked to comment on his victory, had only the following peremptory response:
"Chess speaks for itself."
Now Magnus went on to win that mini-match 3-1, but the tone was set there and then. Hans was here, and Hans meant business. But anytime Magnus Carlsen sits down at the board, he means business too, and he expects to win, especially when he's playing an opponent almost 200 points lower rated than he is, and he has the white pieces. And that's where our story begins, because Hans didn't get the memo. After just 13 moves of their round 3 game in St. Louis, the world champion was already squirming when Hans hit him with a brilliant and unexpected bishop move. Magnus was already worse, and burning through his allotted time to play all his moves, and that's a big factor in a game of professional chess. By move 21, things were even worse. Carlsen was now down a pawn and desperately seeking activity, but Hans wasn't giving an inch. He wasn't playing like a 26-88, his official FIDE rating. No, he was grinding Carlsen down like he was a 28-88. He was doing to Carlsen what Carlsen had made a career on doing to others. Carlsen tried every trick in the book, but Hans never let up. A positional masterpiece was rendered on the board, and Carlsen was left with no choice but to grimace, raise his eyebrows, proffer his hand, and thereby resign the game. So Hans had beaten Magnus, a triumph for the young man, and a moment to be celebrated. In the interview afterwards, he discussed the position, the various subtleties, and he even talked about how he had the exact opening variation on his computer analysis board that very morning. It was the next day that the news hit. Magnus Carlsen stunned the chess world by withdrawing from the prestigious Sinquefield Cup, a move unprecedented for him in his entire career. His reason? The following tweet was all the chess world had to go on, coupled with this clip recorded years earlier by the famous football or soccer manager Jose Mourinho.
I prefer really not to speak. If I speak, I am in big trouble. In big trouble, and I don't want to be in big trouble.
The chess world was immediately ablaze with rumour and speculation, and it soon became apparent that at the heart of Magnus's reason for withdrawing was a suspicion of foul play, aka cheating. How did this become apparent? Well, on the day of Magnus's withdrawal from the tournament, some peculiar things started happening. The tournament organisers suddenly introduced additional security measures, such as delaying their live broadcast by 15 minutes, and then, even more curiously, when the round 4 games were completed and then analysed by the 2 players who had just played a game against each other, the computer analysis engine was turned off. But not for everyone, only for Hans Niemann and his opponent that day, Alireza Firouzja. It was now clear to everyone, Hans Niemann was on trial, but with lack of evidence, judge or jury, this was the worst kind. trial by public opinion. The internet was awash with theories of what had happened, each one steadily more unlikely than the next, from the leak of Magnus's preparation to the use of anal beads, the latter so farcical that even major newspapers picked up the story and ran with it. Elon Musk also got in on the action with a series of amusing tweets. Public opinion was against Hans. The world champion had withdrawn. Famous chess streamers like Hikaru Nakamura had picked up on the potentially suspicious aspects of the case, and oh, by the way, Hans had cheated before. But then he must have cheated, I hear you cry. Well, where Hans had previously wanted the chess to speak for itself, on Wednesday 7th of September, he spoke for himself. In a nearly 30-minute interview, which I've linked in the description of this video in case you want to check it out after, Hans passionately responded to his critics, and this is what he had to say. I have never cheated over the board. It's true that I have cheated twice in my life at online chess, once when I was 12 years old and again when I was 16 and looking to rapidly enhance my rating in order to play stronger players, but this was never for prize money and remains the biggest regret of my chess career. And finally, he called on his critics to answer for their part in this attack. Those he named were Magnus Carlsen, Hikaru Nakamura and Danny Rensch, Chief Chess Officer at chess.com, the biggest chess website in the world, because, by the way, chess.com had banned Hans from playing on their site in the wake of Carlsen's withdrawal. Hans stated, I am not going to be scared, to be manipulated, to be conspired against, to try and ruin my chess career. And like flicking on a light switch, where the mind of the mob was previously filled with doubt and suspicion, the most probable truth was suddenly illuminated. Public opinion switched. Where was the evidence of cheating? Had any chess computer been found on Hans's person or someone he was communicating with? Was there any evidence in his play that he was being assisted? Was there any evidence in his response to the accusations that he was cheating? The answer to all plausible questions was a resounding no. And so to this day, sure, Hans could have cheated, but to this day, neither Magnus Carlsen or anyone else has brought to light any concrete evidence that would suggest he has done so. So what about chess.com? What about Hikaru? What about Magnus? What did they have to say about all of this now that Hans had hit back? Well, here's what chess.com had to say. Feel free to pause the video and read into it what you will. As for Hikaru, he released 2 videos on his YouTube channel in the following days, seeking to make it clear that he never directly accused Hans. And as for Magnus, well, no one knows what he has to say on this, because to this day, at the time of recording, Magnus still hasn't broken his silence, and so his initial tweet is still all we have to go on. So, what's the verdict on all of this? Well, for me, there's little more to say. Other than following an investigation by the tournament organisers, this was the finding of the chief arbiter.